Soju is not just a drink, but an integral part of South Koreans' daily lives. Whether a person is a drinker or not, their lives are intertwined with the world Soju creates. It's a ubiquitous presence capable of being a part of every feeling or moment people experience. To illustrate this, let's dive into some iconic scenes from popular Korean movies and TV series.
이거 마시면 우리 사귀는 거다.
안 마시면?
별일 없는 거지. 죽을 때까지.
아니야 인마. 그래 좀 그래. 속상해 그래. 그래 안 그래 안 그래.
재밌다.
비밀.
아우 맛있어 맛있어 그래 이년아 지연 없네? 그래 이년아
15년 전 지연이의 엄마는
In these scenes, Soju is not merely a probe, it's a powerful narrative device, seamlessly integrated into romantic or desperate the life moment. The presence enhances and amplifies the emotion that each story aims to convey, a characteristic that distinguishes it from other alcoholic beverages such as beer, wine, and vodka. Soju is a window into South Korean culture and society. It projects the public's idea of social hierarchy and shows Korea's unique pragmatism. To understand its significance, let's explore its history and types. We need a brief introduction to Soju and its history. There are two types of Soju, distilled and diluted. The most common type, the green bottle or cyan color, is the latter. After making pure alcohol with cheap ingredients like cassava, it is diluted with water to make around 21% ABV. Make us put some sweetener and artificial flavor into it, otherwise it will be nothing but watered down medical alcohol. That's why many people say it tastes awful because of its sanitary smell, while others say it tastes like a candy because of its sweetener. The irony is the cheaper artificial flavor psychoactive chemical is much preferred by drinkers regardless of their level of wealth or education across all generations. The distilled soju, a traditional type, has a much more elegant flavor. Ironically, even many high-end wine or single malt whiskey fans enjoy those cheap, mass-produced items for the reasons you could imagine, like marketing, low prices, and effortless accessibility. Soju is like an alcohol version of Marmite or Vegemite in terms of love it or hate it, and having a fixation on it once you get used to it. There is no great single answer as to why diluted soju became the representation of South Korean alcoholic beverages. Among all the explanations, I want to focus on its characteristic feature as a catalyst for creating an equalized society, or an illusion that we live in an equalized society. Koreans become communist because of what they eat. They think their society shouldn't distinguish social classes by the type or quality of food. No one argues that rich people live in luxury houses and drive fancy cars. But the food is different. Rich people might have kimchi rice with better quality ingredients, but all social classes have kimchi rice along with the side dishes, banchan. How is it possible? A bit of history. In the Joseon dynasty, the rule of palaces limited the number of banchan dishes for king's tables. It was 12. Though it didn't violate the law, it was discouraged if someone wanted to put more dishes on their tables. Throughout history, Koreans have put brakes on luxurious dining tables of wealthier people while raising the quality of food that lower classes have. It has been a combination of upward leveling and downward leveling. Distilled soju is a perfect example of this combination. Soju was originally a drink for the wealthy and the upper class. Not only was it highly expensive, but it also meant soju drinkers had powers. Here is a brief introduction to how distilled soju is made. First, we cook steamed rice, then mix it with yeast. We put it into a jar along with water. If it is ferment for around 2 weeks, we get an alcoholic beverage. Koreans call it takju, which means opaque drink. The ABV is around 16%. Takju becomes makgeolli when you put water into it again. Makgeolli means roughly filters. The reason for watering it down is to let more people enjoy it. If we filter takju, we get cheongju, a transparent drink. The Japanese call it sake. We get soju by distilling cheongju. We get an idea of how expensive soju was. Rice has been processed like gold for thousands of years, but it has only become a staple in recent decades. Wine and beer have been common for every European, partly because grapes are most unused for food. But rice was like a currency for Koreans. They traded with rice, so distilling soju was like burning a fire over $100. It is no surprise that diluted soju quickly became a standard item in Korea, where the first diluted soju was on the horizon in the mid-1900s. Laborers needed a strong and cheap alcoholic drink to relieve the burden of hard work. Diluted soju was perfect for this need. It was down to leveling in terms of how it was made, but it was also an affordable level simultaneously, so even the poorest could have split. The government has imposed a low tax on soju. Everyone knows the side effects of having low tax on it, but many believe the benefits of cheap soju outweigh the side effects. In other words, getting drunk using only a few coins is right. Soju's evolution into mass-produced diluted form marked its shift towards accessibility and social equality, albeit an illusory one. When it suggests having a cup with somebody, we usually want a conversation rather than tea or coffee. Suggesting soju is similar, but it has a magic that makes people say delicate messages and emotions. Plus, there is a hidden rule. You are encouraged not to mention what happened when they were drunk. Drinking soju is a way for Koreans to solve their issues at home and work. It's like a psychotherapy. One person cries out when others listen. Even if the problem remains unchecked, they often believe it does not matter because they have expressed their emotions because of the magic soju brings. Therefore, soju needs to be cheap and class neutral. Nowadays, diluted soju isn't as cheap as it was, mainly because of food price inflation, but you can still buy a bottle of soju in a supermarket for $1 and a few cents. Soju makers invest a lot of money in marketing to sell soju to all generations and genders. These are soju ads. If a woman appears in a soju ad, no one doubts she's a big star. One may wonder if this is gender discrimination because only young women are present in the ad. But there's an explanation for this. First, clean and pure is the main message that soju makers want to deliver in terms of marketing. It doesn't have a complex aroma, but it is made at a factory that almost looks like a pharmaceutical company. And it has a much lower methanol content than other alcoholic beverages. Therefore, clean and pure makes sense along with its color. Also, soju makers confirm that stressing clean and pure is the most effective marketing method. Second, it makes soju more accessible to young female drinkers. Soju makers lower soju's ABV from 25 to around 20 to sell more. Besides the marketing, the flavor of soju also comes from the South Korean trait. Some call it unique efficiencies. If the primary purpose of drinking is getting drunk, then why don't you go straight to it? This is how Koreans think. It explains why soju is high ABV. Soju's less distinctive aromas and flavors allow it to pair with various types of food, enhancing the overall dining experience because soju doesn't compete with or obscure the flavor food. Introduced when South Korea was a poor country, diluted soju remains the nation's favorite drink. As of 2020s, South Koreans have more options for their booze and more money, but soju still remains their number one choice. It has been considered a social bond for alleviating their daily conflict. Soju is a social integrator in South Korea.